2026 Fairfax County Architectural Review Board to order. Before we get started, we do have to do a motion or two. First motion is on public comment time limitation. The ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during the public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after consent agenda items and after each action item as standard ARB practice. Mr. Daniel.
Mr. Chair, I move that each member of the public have 3 minutes to speak.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes. The meeting is being recorded and the recording will be posted online within 10 days. I did not ask anyone to read the statement, but
I'd be happy to.
Ms. Mangum is graciously volunteering to do so. Thank you, Ms. Mangum.
Statement of purpose and intent. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Mangum. Next, we need to approve the agenda. I would entertain a motion regarding the agenda. Mr. Day.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. I'd remind applicants, please limit your project presentations to 8 minutes for a first submission and 3 minutes to a resubmission. If it's a resubmission, please focus on areas that we asked for feedback on and what has changed since the last presentation. Mary Catherine, any guests to introduce or recognize?
No.
We do not have any consent calendar action items, so that brings us into our items for action. Our first item for action is adoption of the revised design guidelines. And I understand we have some members from EHT Traceries who are present remotely.
That's correct. Sarah
Hi,
Vonish,
everyone.
Good evening.
I can't tell. Can you see me or just hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much for accommodating me online. I'm so excited to be here tonight. Mary Catherine, did you want me to jump in or were you going to start?
Please go ahead and just jump right in.
Okay, I have a very brief presentation. Thrilled to be here to be finalizing the design guidelines. It's been a long process, but we're, I think, at the end, I hope. My name is Sarah Vonish. I'm the Director of Preservation Planning and a project manager with EHT Traceries. Traceries is a historic preservation consulting firm based in Washington, D.C., specializing in history and historic preservation. We work with government agencies as well as private clients, providing archival research, survey and documentation, evaluation, regulatory compliance, as well as preservation planning. So if you go to the next slide. As a reminder to everyone, the goals of the project were to create new user-friendly and graphically interesting design guidelines to support the ARB DPD staff, as well as project applicants in preparing plans for structures within the HODs. On the top of this image, you can see the existing design guidelines that you're working with from 1992 and an introduction, a little snapshot of the revised guidelines, a lot more imagery and graphic clues or cues to help applicants and users. Next slide. The scope of our work included developing new overarching design guidelines that would apply to all historic overlay districts, and then updating and illustrating the existing guidelines for what was at the time 13 historic overlay districts, And then throughout the process, 2 additional historic overlay districts were designated. So we prepared design guidelines for those districts as well. Next. This slide kind of outlines our process that we went through to get through to today. At the outset, we reviewed the existing guidelines, met with ARB to establish the goals and the vision for the project. And then we visited each HOD to get a better understanding of the district character that needed to be preserved through these guidelines. We submitted and presented multiple drafts of the outline and template, the general guidelines, as well as the individual design guidelines for feedback from the ARB and DPD staff, as well as the public, and addressed revisions along the way to get to the final version. Next slide. During this process, staff also engaged the public and held 8 public information sessions. We then took the comments and the input that were received from the public and used that in the final design guideline revisions. You can go to the next. And as far as the project timeline, this project kicked off in October 2019. It's really hard to believe. Our first presentation to the ARB was in January of 2020. Here you can see the multiple draft iterations and presentations we had. You can jump to the next one. Again, in 2024, the public presentations and engagement happened. Over the latter half of that year, staff compiled all of the public input and provided the feedback to traceries to then incorporate into the final version. Next. Just to remind you of the organization, I know you're all familiar with these documents, but the overall, the general design guidelines that apply to all historic overlay districts provide kind of the general information and framework for the process. Chapter 1 introduces what historic overlay districts are, their purpose, their boundaries, what the property classifications are, as well as what character defining features are. Chapter 2 outlines the ARB's role and explains the project review process and submission requirements. Chapter 3 provides the standards and design principles used to evaluate projects, including guidance drawn from the Secretary of the Interior standards. Chapter 4 provides practical design guidelines for rehabilitation, new construction, and landscape and site features. And then the appendix includes reference materials and a glossary of terms. Next. And then the district-specific design guidelines follow a very similar framework, but they focus on the unique history and character of each HOD. So Chapter 1 introduces the guidelines, summarizes applicable regulations, and explains how to use the document. It also references back to the general design guidelines for users that just jump to their specific historic overlay district. Chapter 2 outlines the district's history and significance. Chapter 3 provides an overview of the district's boundaries and resources, and a summary of its character defining features to emphasize what should be preserved as part of a project. Chapter 4 provides the tailored design guidelines for rehabilitation, new construction, and preservation of landscape and site features. And then finally, the appendix includes additional resources and a detailed inventory of the properties within the HOD. And next is my last slide. So here we are with the completed general design guidelines, along with the updated and new guidelines for the county's now 15 historic overlay districts. It's been a long process, and I really want to thank DPD staff, the ARB, for your work and thoughtful input along the way. And I really believe these guidelines will serve as a valuable tool and resource to support your work and the county's work in preserving the HODs. So thank you very much, and open to any questions or comments.
Thank you very much. Any members of the public that wish to comment on this? All right. Any members of the board that wish to comment? Mr. Daniel.
So I am so happy to see this happen. And I also think it's important to recognize the amount of efforts, not just traceries, but so much staff has done to make this happen, as well as several former board members, particularly members Richard Bierce and Robert Mobley, who really kind of kicked off this discussion quite a long time ago. When I was a fledgling board member, I feel like at that point. So I think particularly for recognizing the current staff we have who's carrying it across the finish line and then the staff there, I'm going to read the letter that kind of sits at the front of the guidelines into the record because I think it really captures the appreciation, the effort that was put into this. So the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board extends its sincere appreciation to the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Development Heritage Resource staff, Denise Dressel, Jonathan Kaplan, and former Architectural Review Board members whose dedication and expertise were instrumental in developing these design guidelines. This initiative would not have been successful without the contributions of former staff, including Linda Blank, Laura Arsenault, Nicole Brannon, and Daniel White, as well as former members Elise Murray, Susan Notkins, Michelle Aubrey, and Jason Sutton. Additionally, special recognition is given to former members Richard Bierce and Robert Mobley for their vision and persistence that provided the initial momentum for this project. Their leadership established the foundation for this endeavor, and their legacy continues to inspire and guide the work of the Architectural Review Board. These guidelines stand as a testament to our commitment to preserving the cultural, architectural, and archaeological heritage of Fairfax County. We preserve these places not only for ourselves, but for future generations, ensuring they remain living reflections of the county's diverse history. In doing so, we honor those that came before us and fulfill our duty to those yet to walk these streets and dwell within these walls. That's all I have to say, and I'm going to be voting yes.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? And if not, I would entertain a motion. Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item 1 to adopt revised design guidelines for the following historic overlay districts: Bull Run Stone Bridge, Centerville, Colvin Run Mill, Drainsville Tavern, Huntley, Lake Ann Village Center, Langley Fork, Mount Ayr, Oak Church, Ruby's Mill, St. Mary's Church, Sully, and Woodlawn, as well as general design guidelines as submitted and presented at the February 12, 2026 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101, historic overlay districts.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Daniel, I'm going to call on each of us to vote individually on this one. Ms. Hammock,
I'm in favor. Aye.
Mr. Burns,
I vote aye.
Ms. Ward,
Yes.
Mr. Daniel,
Aye.
Ms. Mangum,
Aye.
Ms. Wong,
Aye.
Mr. Kalinsky,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So that passes unanimously. Thank you very much for all your hard work. We appreciate it. I know it's been a long process, but this is a good culmination to that process.
Yay.
Amazing. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Ask a quick question.
Yes.
How soon will these get posted on the website or? are they
Very
already-
soon.
Okay, thank you.
As soon as we can get them.
I checked last night and I was like,
Yeah.
but yes, yeah, okay, thanks.
Will there be a hard copy, like, available at the planning office or at the library?
That is a good question.
I don't think we have plans for that right now, but we could look into it.
I will say, as we started to evaluate and continue to grow this project as it spread over the expended timeline, one of the decisions previously was to cut back on a printed copy in this scope currently, because we went far beyond the time frame of expected to draft these guidelines with COVID, additional historic overlay districts. So the initial contract that we had with Traceries, I think to get to this point, we elected to make it fully digital and ADA accessible online to meet those requirements, with the option that it could be printed in the future.
I think that there should be a hard copy at the office.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just like, you're wondering why it's not here, because I wanted
No,
one
no, I
at one
don't,
point.
I mean, I just think that when people come and have questions in meetings, there's something really helpful to.
Yeah, totally.
All right, awesome. All right, our second action item on the agenda is ARB 2026 MV 00006, 1915 Martha's Road addition. Applicant proposing a primary bedroom and bath rear addition. Ms. Kelly represents the application. Ms. Kelly.
Mr. Chairman.
And before we get started, I promised I was going to remember this time. I still forgot. Mr. Burns, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, John Burns, declare my personal interest in transactions brought before the Architectural Review Board involving the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District and specifically state the following for the February 12th, 2026 ARB meeting. Although it is the opinion of the County Attorney's Office that I'm not legally required to make a formal disclosure statement, I am making this statement regarding action items ARB 2026 MV4, ARB 2026 MV5, ARB 2026 MV6, and ARB 2026 MV7 in the interest of transparency and to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest. I own and reside in a home in the Holland Hills HOD. The properties under consideration tonight are not adjacent to or visible from my property. I have not worked with or received a gift or benefit from anyone associated with these projects. Accordingly, I am able to participate in the transactions fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Yes, Kelly.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to present the Hamed residents. I was here last month for a workshop and bringing the final design before you tonight. In the workshop design, we had a carport, and my client Sherry Hamed and I have decided to remove the carport, and we'll study and come back probably for a phase 2 in the future. So tonight is for the one-story bedroom addition at the back of the house. May I have the next slide, please? This is the plat showing the bedroom addition at the back right corner. And the next slide, please. Some photos to take you around the property, on the left showing from the street and the driveway leading up to the house. And then on the right showing where the addition will be going in the rear. And the next slide, please. And some more photos showing you where the bedroom addition will be going in the back of the house. So it'll be covering that patio, and then we'll be doing a new patio over to the right. The next slide, please. This is the existing floor plan. And the next slide, please. The existing roof plan. And the next slide shows the new bedroom addition at the back and a new patio to the left. And the next slide, please, shows the roof plan. We're tying in 2 gables that are the same slope as the existing house. The next slide, please. Shown from the front, you'll just see a little bit of the addition off to the right where the closet sticks out to the north, south, on the east side. And then from the east, you'll see the 2 gables, well, the single gable of the new addition tying into the existing gable of the house. And the next slide, please, is from the rear. You'll see the new bedroom addition on the left. And then from the side addition, you'll see how it extends out the back, and it extends out about 21 feet out the back. And the windows modules will match the existing house. And you can keep going through the slides, building section and lighting plan, and the structural drawings are also included. And then a 3D model showing the addition off the back. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kelly. Are there any members of the public that have questions or comments on this project? All right. Board members with questions or comments on this project?
I'll make a
Ms.
motion
Hammack.
to approve. No?
Maybe. I don't know if there are any comments.
The only comment I was going to say, I appreciate you pulling back on the garage, Ms. Kelly. I think, as we've kind of expressed in the last few board meetings, was the most contentious thing about the project, was trying to find something that worked, especially with a house that I think has really good integrity here. So I think the addition is very sensitive to the house proper. So that was my only comment.
Thank you.
Ms. Hammack?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB-2026-MV
00006, located at 1915 Martha's Road, Alexandria, tax map 0933-040141 in the Holland Hills HOD, for the construction of a primary bedroom and back rear addition, as submitted and presented at the February 12th, 2026 ARB meeting. The applicant must request an amendment from the ARB for any proposed changes to ARB-2026-MB-00006 as approved by the ARB on February 12th, 2026. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101-historic overlay districts.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Orr with a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yes. Don't go too far. That brings us to ARB 2025 MV 000077410 Ricard Lane addition. The applicant is proposing a new screen porch addition on the back of the home, and Ms. Kelly represents the application.
Okay, thank you. I was here last month for the workshop and then here tonight to present the final drawings. And I also have a sample of the exterior trim. That was one of the questions that you had asked at the workshop meeting, what we'll be using. The next slide, please. This is the plat showing the screen porch going in the back left corner of the existing house. And the next slide shows a few pictures of the existing house and where we'll be tucking the screen porch in. And the next slide, please. A view from the front. You really won't see the screen porch from the front as the house kind of sits down a little bit from the street. And the next slide, please. This is the existing floor plan. And the next slide, the existing roof plan. And this slide shows the floor plan where the screen porch will be going in the back left corner of the property. And the roof line is a butterfly roof. And the next slide, this shows the slope of the roof. Mr. Burns, on the last meeting, you had a question about the height of the butterfly overhang. We reduced that so that it's the same height as the existing house, so it doesn't overshoot it. I did that rather than lower the slope because it kind of squished the screens on the clear story portions of the screens. I just didn't want to squish. Back one more slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Go forward one more, please. I didn't want to make this too narrow, so this stayed the same, but we reduced the overhang so that it matches the height of the existing house. And then the exterior trim on the screen porch will be Boral trim, which is, it's a composite piece and it'll be painted. And Robert Fina gave me that piece. He'll be the contractor for the addition. He's a lifelong Holland Hiller and does a lot of work in Holland Hills. The next slide, please. Showing the rear and the side elevations of the screen porch. And then the next slide showing the lighting plan and the structural plans. Yes, few slides. And then I have a few 3D renditions of the porch. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Any members of the public wish to comment on this one? Okay, any members of the board with questions or comments?
Does this come finished or does it?
That has a coat of paint, that has a coat of primer, I think, on it.
Okay, so then you use it and then you can paint it any color you want.
Yes.
Mr. Burns?
I appreciate you taking my concern that I expressed on the height of the extension of the roof. But I'm concerned now that you've reduced its functionality to shade that because of the sun low in the afternoon. So all things considered, it might be better functionally if you left the length and disregarded my suggestion to lower the angle. Because I don't want you to compromise the functionality of the overhang.
It still is a 3-foot overhang, so it's still fairly hefty.
I just don't want the homeowner sitting there, oh, that ARB member suggested we need a shorter overhang. And now the sun's in our face in the afternoon.
And they,
Just make sure that
I won't name names.
that's an unintended consequence of my suggestion. Yeah.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Motions?
We did the last one.
Mr. Chair. Oh, Mr. Dan.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I move the ARB approve action item, ARB 2026. I want to make sure that's correct with staff. The number 3 says 2025, but the action item says
It
2026.
should be 2026.
Okay, all right, so let me be certain there. All right, I'll start again. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item, ARB 2026 MB 00007, located at 7410 Ricard Lane, Alexandria, tax map 0933040179, the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District, for a new screen porch addition on the back of the home as submitted and presented at the February 12, 2026 ARB meeting. The applicant must request an amendment from the ARB for any proposed changes to ARB 2026 MB 00007 as approved by the ARB on February 12, 2026. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
All right, is there a second? Second by Ms. Orr. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Gill.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. All right, that brings us to action item number 4, ARB 2026 MV 00005, 1911 Martha's Road window replacement. Applicant proposing replacement of windows using insulated glass from enlargement of one window. Larry Davenport represents the application.
Excuse me, I just spoke with Ms. Davenport. She's trying to get in the building. I think she's on the wrong side.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm the following one, 2203 Martha's Road. May I step in and go now, and then she'll come in and activate?
I don't see why not. Yeah.
Discretion, Mr. Chair.
It's all up to me. I have so much power. Yes, let's do that. All right, so we'll skip number 4 for now and go to number 5, which is ARB 2026 MV 00004 2203 Martha's Road repairs. Applicant is proposing roof and siding repairs to a detached structure referred to as the Tea House. And while it says Sarah Sumwalt represents the application, I'm gonna guess that's not accurate.
That is not correct. Good evening. Thanks for your flexibility, and thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. So we are at, I'm Dave Sumwalt, Sarah's husband. Sorry about that.
Oh.
We're at 2203 Martha's Road. As you can see, it's Tea House repairs, and like you said, the roof is going to get repaired. Next slide, please. So that is the front view of our house from the street. The Tea House, if I may, I'll walk up, is this structure, accessory structure on the back of the property. Time when the photo was taken, clearly visible from the street. Summertime, not as visible because of the foliage. Next slide, please. There's another closer up picture, and as I pointed out, the other photo from the street. In May of last year, you're all familiar with the storm that came through. A branch from a locust tree in the back there fell on top of the roof and poked a hole through it. Additionally, the roof rafters were notched for the interior trusses, and that compromised the integrity of the strength, thereby causing the board to depart from the structure overhead. It's important to note that there was an additional tree that fell in the past prior to our owning the home and unbeknownst to us. So I think that further weakened the structure, and also the second hit was the one that took it out. All right, slide please. Just for perspective, another image there. Next slide, please. More images, another one, please. The back view. Next one, please. That's an image of the branch that parted from about 35, 40 feet above, and that's part of the damage to the roofing material. Next slide, please. There's a part where one part departed. That's from the previous strike. Next one. I don't have a picture of where the hole poked through, but it's there. It's temporarily patched right now, and we've been working with our insurance company, Amica, to get the approval, who connected us with Minuteman Restoration to do the repair. They're the ones who provided us with the drawings from their structural engineer to accomplish this project. They only have approved, Amica's only approved the repairs to damaged areas, and they'll use the materials to match the existing ones. The reference to the window, we removed that for our discussion with the team here at the county. And no windows are planning to be replaced at this time. I went out and checked them. They all work at the moment. Exterior repairs solely to the roof and the fascia wrap. So if you would like to go back to the other image to put in perspective, you can go back a slide, please. Well, you can go to the last one. I think it's another image of the house, please. Next one. There you go. No gutters or downspouts are going to be installed. The fascia wrap, white or aluminum around the fascia underneath the roof surface is going to get replaced. And then we're installing a 45 mil EPDM roof system. And for the contractor, all standard fasteners and seaming tape will be applied. Slide, please. Here's the images of the drawings we were provided with. I believe you all have had them and may have had an opportunity to review them, so I won't cover them. Next slide, please. To just point out again, item C talks about where they were notched greater than today's standard for the codes. So next slide. Some more data on the drawings. Next slide, please. More data. Slide. Unless if you guys all need time to review them, please let me know. I'll slow down. But this is all the data that we provided for this presentation today. So,
All right.
So I have any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any members of the public wish to comment on this one? Not all at once. Okay. Members of the board, questions and comments? Ms. Hammond.
Do you know the date of construction for this building?
I can find that out for you. We have the plans at home. I think it was 95, but I'm not positive.
I'm having a hard time finding it from the street, so I don't think it. Yeah, because you mentioned that and actually Google Earth has different seasons, and one of them is November. And so I don't really think it's very discernible from the street, which is good. Plus
Okay.
what you're proposing is totally in keeping with what's there now. So I don't have any issue with it, and I appreciate the thoughtful presentation.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. This seems to be minor repair. Did it require a building permit? Is that why we're here?
I believe so, because the roof is being replaced. I believe there's structure
I
in the
thought you-
rafters. But
Oh, because they're structal, because some of the wood was broke. All right.
Because I think
It's
the
not
structural
just paint
integrity was compromised, so
Yeah,
that's what
okay.
led to
Okay.
it.
All right.
Is it a playhouse?
We've been in the house for years. It's been multiple iterations. It's been a playhouse.
I saw a gym on one of those.
So it was a playhouse. It was a gym.
Like a mall.
Right now, it's just a vacant structure on the top.
Have you actually drank any tea?
I have not, but I understand the previous owners have.
Right, other questions?
Just a
Yeah,
quick-
Ms. May.
You mentioned in the presentation that there was a reference somewhere in the Amica, I don't know what to call it, claim file or claim loss detail, where they mention a window replacement, and that is not part of the project. I'm having a hard time finding it there. I was just wondering, as a board, do we need to condition approval upon the statement in the presentation that wherever that line is that talks about window replacement might be stricken? But-
So it was in there and we were asked to remove that.
It was here. It used to be here.
Okay, so it's already been taken out. Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion. Mr. Burns. We're on item number 5.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 2026 MV 00004, located at 2203 Martha's Lane, Alexandria, tax map 0933040112 in Holland Hills HOD for siding and roof repairs to a detached structure as submitted and presented at the February 12, 2026 ARB meeting. The applicant must request an amendment from the ARB for any proposed changes to ARB 2026 MV 00004 as approved by the ARB on February 12, 2026. On review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Is there a second? Mr. Kalinsky, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Sumwalt, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to the staff for helping us navigate this process.
You said you had heard from Ms. Davenport, that she said she
I
was.
did text her and she said that Christine, who just went before me, was letting her in.
Okay,
So,
all right.
so
I was realizing that she hadn't come in while your presentation went through, but she would be last on our action items.
I'll put them in the hallway. That was helpful.
Good. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Short.
Why don't we take a 5-minute break? If anyone needs to use the restroom or anything, feel free, and then we'll take up that action item in our workshop. Right after our break, and that brings us to our fourth action item, which will be our last action item of the evening, ARB 2026 MV 00005, 1911 Martha's Road window replacement. Applicant is proposing replacement of windows using insulated glass and enlargement of one window. And Ms. Davenport. Ms.
One
Davenport.
second, I'm just gonna
Just-
excuse.
Yes, and Ms. Hammock, yeah, I was going to turn it to you. You have to recuse yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me.
And we will make sure to remember to get you when we are done with this application. Although, don't rely on me because I always say I'm going to remember Mr. Burns' statement and I don't. So, Ms. Davenport, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So if you recall, yep, we can skip to this. The original building is here on the left. This is Martha's Road. An addition was done in the 60s. We covered windows around here, so I won't, if you could fast forward the slide, please. I won't really dwell on this since that was part of the approval last time. And if you recall, we talked about my coming back with a plan to replace all of the existing windows in the main original portion of the house. We decided to bite the bullet and use the rest of our budget to replace all the windows in the house with the exception of 3 operable windows on the lower level. 2 of those operable windows are in the lower level bedrooms, and 1 of those operable windows is in the rec room. They're newer, they're in good shape, the glass is clear, they're not leaking, and we're using, I have a note up in the corner here saying we're using that glass as the basis of design for all the new glass to match. If you could advance the slide, please. So this is an existing window detail with single pane glass and wood stops in front of the mullion. And what we're proposing to do is insulated glass, 1/4 inch clear, tempered glass, a 1/4 inch airspace, and a 1/4 inch of tempered glass. Here's the sample. Please pardon the fingerprints. And if we could advance, please. So we're reusing the existing frames. And if you recall, this is the facade we focused on a lot last time. Our original plan was just to replace this solid panel that we presume had originally been glass. And in order to, create harmony and have everything match, not only are we replacing this panel, we're replacing all of the glass except for this little operable window that I mentioned earlier. Almost all of this is single pane. We talked about this lower level bedroom last time that had already been insulated, but it's very green. And so even though it's already insulated, we're still replacing that because we want it to match and not to be green. We're going to replace this door with a full light of glass. The door is pretty old as well. We're leaving this operable window, as I said. We do not require any operable windows by code in the living room, and so we're just going to have all of them be fixed. And none of these lower ones on this facade will be operable either. They'll all be fixed, but the glass that is currently green will be replaced. Next slide, please. If we go to the back of the house, here are the two existing operable windows that I mentioned are in good shape and the glass is pretty clear. We're replacing everything in red with fixed glass, again, to match. The two upper windows are bedrooms, and so they do require an operable piece. And so we've chosen the two lower areas in blue to be the new operable windows. The frame will match the lower level, and we're trying to align them with the lower level either as well. If you could go to the next slide, please. This is in the very front of the house, sort of towards the entrance, and we don't need any operable leaves here, so we're just replacing this with insulated glass, same type. And then if you advance one more, please. So this is the back corner of the house. We talked about enclosing these two non-conforming windows last time. And so that's not part of this discussion, but what we're addressing here are these three windows: bathroom, lower level bathroom, upper level bathroom, and laundry utility room. There's a lot of wood rot as we've started doing some work on the house. A lot of these frames are in bad shape, probably because they were, in steamy showers for 70 years. So if you advance one forward, please. This is the existing elevation at that corner. And then we want to replace the two lower windows with just one clean piece of glass. We don't require operability by code in either of those rooms. And then since this frame in particular is so destroyed, we decided to have one 3-foot Holland Hills window there to align with the window below. And since we're replacing the frame here, the detail is slightly different, but it is very similar. It's still, the 5.5 inch by 1.5 inch with insulated glass. Again, the glass will match everywhere. So if you advance one more slide, that's really what it's going to look like in that back corner of the house. We'll have a drape on the inside, for privacy when we need it, but mostly we're just looking at trees and not our neighbors. So that's about it. So that's the glass plan.
Thank you, Ms. Davenport. Any members of the public wish to comment on this one? Cool. Any members of the board, questions or comments? Mr. Burns.
You're using both lights as quarter plate. You're trying to avoid oil canning. Is that why you're using such heavy glass? Because it's heavy.
Yeah.
And they'll be very heavy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Or a motion? Someone to
Number 4 on your.
That's why I'm struggling.
Sorry, I
Mr.
messed
Kalinsky.
it up by going out of order.
Mr. Kalinsky.
I'd like to make a motion.
4.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 2026 MV0005 located at 1911 Martha's Lane, Alexandria, tax map 0933-040139 in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District for replacement of windows using insulated glass and the enlargement of one window as submitted and presented at the February 12, 2026 ARB meeting. The applicant must request an amendment from the ARB for any proposed changes to ARB 2026 MV0005 as approved by the ARB on February 12, 2026. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
Okay, is there a second? Ms. Orr, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Davenport, thank you. Have a good evening.
I appreciate you being for me.
No problem at all. We are actually moving more expeditiously than.
Yeah, I missed the drive.
That seems to
All right, that takes us out of our items for action and into our items for workshop. We have one item for workshop, ARB WK 2026 MV 00002, the River Farm Drive construction of a greenhouse. Applicant is proposing demolition of the attached drive structure and construction of a new greenhouse. Ms. Taylor, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Kathy Taylor from Walsh Colucci. Hopefully you remember when we were here not too long ago. I believe it was October of last year when we proposed some improvements related to ADA accessibility. So hopefully many of you are still very familiar with the site. So just to refresh everyone's memories, this site is zoned to the R2 district and is designated in the Wellington at River Farm Historic Overlay District. As you may already know, the site was once part of George Washington's original farmland and today is developed with various buildings and structures as well as gardens, which do make up River Farm. Some of the most well-known are the Manor House as well as the Carriage House. In addition, hopefully you all are aware that this site is also the headquarters of the American Horticultural Society. And that's been since 1973 when they purchased this site. So the applicant organization continues to operate River Farm, which is open to the public for free, one of the great things about this site, and has become a popular destination, you might know, for weddings, events, retreats, or like me, maybe just taking your kids as a quiet escape to enjoy nature away from the busyness of the DMV. So with the American Horticultural Society being one of the oldest and most respected national horticultural practices, nonprofit organizations in North America, it does maintain this over 25 acres of landscape gardens, open natural spaces with the mission of inspiring the culture of gardening, all within the setting of this historic agricultural property. So to support its mission and continue to advance the good work of this nonprofit and to advance horticultural practices, it seems to make sense that the applicant would like to construct a new greenhouse on the site, the details of which we can discuss this evening. So if we go to the next slide, if you were able to review, there's currently a hoop house, a temporary hoop house that is used for plant cultivation. But this space right now is insufficient to meet the applicant's growing operational needs. So the proposal is to repurpose and replace one of the existing garages on the site and convert it to an approximate 400 square foot greenhouse. So you can see, just to visualize, that existing building is the one that's outlined in red. It's currently the north garage. And I just kind of pointed out its location. There's the main parking lot to the west. You can see the main walkway if you're coming through the parking lot to get to the Manor House and the Carriage House, which are both outlined in the orange. And then that temporary hoop house, I believe, is actually located behind in this kind of general vicinity already. So if we can go to the next, this is sort of a zoomed in. We've turned it clockwise a little bit. So that's the image you're seeing, parking lot. Now it's to the north. You can see that walkway. And then we were here previously about the south garage. If you remember, we wanted to add ADA bathrooms. You can see there where it says public restrooms, future build, and that's also, the south garage is also where the children's library. And then if you continue down that walkway, that's when you get to the Carriage House and the Manor House. So this, where you see where it's labeled Garage 1 and Garage 2, that is the north garage, and we would be replacing that garage with, or that location is where the new greenhouse would be located. So right now, that north garage is currently utilized for ancillary storage and really doesn't serve any type of meaningful long-term purpose. While this building is listed as a contributing resource, the north garage has been for many years and continues to be simply this secondary storage space, and doesn't really serve any purpose or function that enhances the historic character of the site nor the mission of the American Horticultural Society. So over time, this garage has become a bit of an eyesore from an aesthetic standpoint, especially in consideration of its proximity to the south garage, which has been renovated, and as well as when you're coming from the parking lot and walking up towards the Manor House. In addition, repairing and restoring it would cost a significant amount of money and would really result in no benefit to the organization. Thus, because the building is really just used for auxiliary storage, we believe that replacement of this weathered structure would not diminish or degrade the historical significance of the estate. So if we go to the next slide, these are just images of what that garage looks like today. And the image to the left, it's the structure on the left. The south garage is the one on the right. And then the image on the right is just if you were looking from the carriage house or the manor house at that garage. If we go to the next slide, again, just other images of what that garage looks like today. And then the next slide is we opened up the doors and you can just see today it's just used as storage. So if we go to the next slide, this is the actual proposed design. This is kind of a AI image where they put it on top of actually, although today you can't really see the walkway, but this is essentially what the location where it would be. The applicant has thoughtfully designed the greenhouse in a way that would protect, complement, and enhance the historic character of the primary manor house and the surrounding buildings. And though the proposed greenhouse would replace the existing north garage, the applicant wouldn't be demolishing it entirely. While the frame of the north garage will be eliminated, the new greenhouse would actually utilize the existing concrete foundation and to the extent that it's feasible, and it would remain in its original footprint. So we would not be expanding the house beyond what the existing north garage is today. In doing so, the applicant will continue to prioritize the existing spatial relationships between the paved drives, the original main house, and the ancillary buildings, and that's consistent with the HOD design guidelines. The applicant would also maintain the original orientation of the north garage, so it would be facing that main walkway, following the existing orientation and prevailing building patterns. And finally, by limiting the size of the structure, the applicant would ensure that the new construction does not visually overpower the more prominent buildings in this area, nor obstruct the significant Potomac River view sheds that define the site. In terms of the actual design, it would remain contextual in style. You can see it integrates a gable roof and reuses, actually the knee wall that you see around would be reusing brick or masonry materials from the original structure. And it creates that symmetrical building design, again, consistent with the contextual historic design of the area. And then the proposed greenhouse frame itself would be finished in either this green or dark browns powder coated aluminum alloy. This ensures durability of the structure while creating that aesthetic harmony with the estate's historic setting, including the adjacent south garage. Finally, as noted, the architectural intent is to be deferential in style, so it creates that modest subordinate building that would continue to allow the manor house to continue to communicate its primacy within the landscape. And then the next images are just precedent images of not necessarily what it would look like, but what the house itself, what the greenhouse itself would look like. So in the end, we do believe that the integration of this new greenhouse would support the applicant's dedication as the American Horticultural Society to preserve River Farm as America's home for horticultural excellence. This proposal will advance its mission to inspire cultural gardening and horticultural practices while also complementing, we've been mindful to complement that historic character and retaining the character defining elements and materials of the estate's primary houses and overall landscaping. So we wanted the opportunity to present this to you all, get your thoughts, and then go from there.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Not an action item, so right into board and staff comments, questions, comments, thoughts. Ms. Orr, then Ms. Hannan.
Hooray. I have never been a big fan of the building that's there. I know Laura was struggling with how to include that in contributing buildings when she was putting this HOD together. Because it is obviously a more modern building.
Right, it was one of the garages, I think, were one of the last.
I think it said 1953.
Yeah. So, but, you know, I'm fine with it going. That's just me.
Well, that was going to be my question because I'm having a hard time finding the report, the argument why they were contributing. I see the date from 53, but having read the report yourself, could you summarize, or maybe if you're familiar with it, like, what was the argument? Why were they found contributing?
I believe it's the states that they're pre-1953, so I read into that perhaps the date's undetermined, and it's unknown if they're attributed to the same architect that did the carriage house dimming.
Well, the design guidelines, which, sorry, my internet is slow, it says several other ancillary buildings were constructed over the following years, including a wood frame tenant house completed in 1935 and 2 garages completed in 1953. So are these one of the 2 garages?
Yeah, so this is the north garage and then the south garage. So those are the 2 garages.
Do you think it was to keep them in demolition?
No, I think she was having trouble because the buildings don't really look much like
No.
what's going on that's beautiful to preserve. I mean, she had trouble,
Okay.
she was grappling with this one.
Well, I think you've done some really positive things. Keeping the footprint, keeping the orientation, keeping the scale. I don't even know, I don't feel strongly about you keeping the foundation brick because it's like a nod that I don't think is necessary. Keeping the footprint size itself and orientation, it's not, if we thought it was precious material, we wouldn't want you to demolish it. So keeping 5 or 6 widths of brick is not, I think, necessary. It doesn't recall a garage because of the pitched roof. Like when I look at it, I'm not like, oh, I see that used to be a garage, but that's okay because we don't think the garage is, besides being a support structure to the mission of the home property. So that's okay. That's kind of my argument for why I think it's okay that it's doing the gable and not the shed. If I wanted to recall this garage, I would say, please keep that steeply roofed shed roof, but I don't feel strongly that it needs to visually recall the garage. And then the materials you've selected are great, but I almost feel like, would it be better, and maybe the board members can answer this, like if the foundation was lower and it was like truly a glass box, like Crystal Palace niche or esque, I don't know.
Well,
I mean, obviously it's not the Crystal
Is
Palace,
the
but
brick that
Monopoly
that's
Crystal
on,
Palace.
is that the correct rendition of the brick that, no, because the brick that's on there is not that special. If I,
It's on the yellow.
yeah.
Sorry, maybe I've got it wrong.
I'm Scott Klein, Chairman. I think you all recognize me from before, American Horticultural Society. More importantly, the biggest advocate of River Farm becoming even more of a special place than it is. And actually, you want that knee wall for construction purposes.
Okay, for water.
But just in general, about how greenhouses work, et cetera. And, not that I want to, your comments are great, so I'll keep my mouth shut for the most part. I don't want to change anything. But as far as the brick is concerned, the brick actually matches the brick in the south building, okay, which is the building that you all approved that we were about to start a $600,000 renovation on, where we're doing the handicap bathrooms. And then we're doing the standing seam, correct? Roof.
So I misunderstood the brick.
Yeah, and so the standing seam roof will then play into the
Module roof
whatever
component.
Exactly. So they'll play together well, but I am not a fan of the brick in the south building or this north building. It was one of the uglier times in brick in the United States history. But at the same time, it makes sense to replicate it just so it's contextually goes along with the other building. But I appreciate the comment that, it would probably be nice if it could be more of a colonial brick like that.
I just laughed because my house is from 1953 and it's made out of that
I
brick.
didn't mean to put your.
No, it's fine. I think if there's a
Did you
nuclear,
paint it?
no, you shouldn't paint brick. But if there's a nuclear fallout, I think my brick will still be there. Whatever it's made out of, it hasn't been repointed. Anyway.
But just so everybody knows, I have to make a comment about the River Farm, which is really cool, and it's not totally public yet, On April 30th, we're gonna have our celebration. But as of December 15th or so, we are now under a permanent conservation easement. And so, under the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust, which you all, I'm sure, are familiar with them. And so it really is a big thing that we're now at the point, everybody, or many people know the history in the last 5 years, 6 years of the river farm and what could have happened. It didn't happen. And now under that conservation easement, we're just going to be able to move further. And we are also going to be starting the trail, the handicap trail down to the river. And so all sorts of pieces are coming together. But this is really important too, because, you know, we have the children's library next to the new handicap restrooms that are going in. And this is directly across from that. And it is a main entry point. And so to have this, it's not just to grow plants, it's also for the community learning center. I think it ties in again with children, but also, you know, with the entire populace. And so it's really going to put that area together nicely. So we really would appreciate your support on it.
Mr. Daniel, and then Mr. Prince.
So I don't disagree with my colleagues that if you're going to choose a building that might need to be replaced, that it's not necessarily, this is one that would be likely for it. I don't like the word phrasing of eyesores for buildings that are historic. If a building's an eyesore, it's the tenant or the owner who has made it an eyesore. Buildings don't have souls. They don't have a willpower of their own. So anytime someone says, oh, this is now an eyesore, someone let it become an eyesore. So disposing of a building because of neglect or poor maintenance, that is not the building's fault. And so that's a slippery slope to go down. Because we also dealt with, and we looked at the building on the parking lot that is absolutely collapsing on itself and is absolutely an eyesore, but it's also been neglected and it's suffered neglect. So I get that, but I would encourage in future, when you submit, it gets the hackles up in preservation when a building gets a takedown done on it because it's ugly. It's a garage. We just store stuff in it. Well, yeah, but it's not a beauty contest in historic preservation. It really is about what we're preserving here. I think in trying to look at the materials about these garages, there isn't a lot. And so the discussion that Ms. Orr had about our staff trying to find how these fit into the history of River Farm, that's a compelling argument to me to say that maybe these lack the level of significance and importance here that we could find a way to replace it with something else. Relying on the building's current state, on the other hand, it's the wrong argument. That's my personal preservationist frustration on that front. I'm also, with the new proposed idea, I don't want it to be too, it's supposed to be sympathetic to the manor house and the carriage house, but I also don't want it to give this false historicism that this is, oh, look, this is the historic greenhouse that was also here at River Farm, because you're doing a lot of good work on, you know, the carriage house and everything right here. I don't want the average Joe public to walk in and kind of slip into that mindset. So I'm fine with, you know, trying to call back and materials, but we need to also make sure that there's some differentiation there, which is always a challenge in historic preservation because we will ask you to be compatible, but also different. And that's, you know, for, you know, architects in this room and the architectural historians, you know, we see them like, okay, that's a new greenhouse. I get it. I can tell by just looking at it, that's new. But for, you know, the family that's coming there with their kids or, you know, a couple of friends who are on the federal shutdown and we have nowhere to go because we're federal employees wandering through and we, you know, see it. If we weren't preservationists, we might not recognize it. So the more we can kind of recognize that, I think would be appreciated in the design. You know, what's going to call it out is a little bit more modern and not get into necessarily the Versailles feeling, because I don't want people to think that it is, you know, that part.
So like maybe no cresting?
That might be one of the details. So, you know, just looking at it, it just felt
Please explain cresting. It's
on the
cresting
top
means
would be.
the little
Victorian
spiral.
yeah.
That's optional.
Yeah.
That's a feature of that. And I appreciate what you're saying. I'm dealing with a project out in Luray, the White House, at a farm and redoing it, 1760s building, working with the Department of Interior, et cetera, et cetera. And that has been a subject matter that's come up. No, because you're trying to kind of fake history it, is what you're saying. And so I think that we can appreciate that. And yeah, can we calm down the lines, which I think is what you're saying, by all means. So it's not to call it out so much to say,
Yeah, and you're already getting ideas of what I'm getting at there. And that's what,
Yeah.
because I don't want to dictate the design necessarily, but I want you to understand that I'm trying to think of the mindset of, well, if someone, John Q or Susie Q Public comes here, I want them to enjoy the greenhouse, but not go, oh, this is the historic
This would
greenhouse.
have really been what it was.
Yeah, this would have been what it
Yeah.
was.
I
And
think we can appreciate that. Absolutely, 100%.
And I totally agree. I would not want to see like, oh, let's call back to the original garage with the yellow brick. Like, that's not going to work
Yeah.
either. You know, a sensitive brick's appropriate here. I don't want to see that, either. But
And I hope you can appreciate and I understand what you're saying about dilapidated or eyesore or whatever. But I hope everybody does understand, we basically have inherited
Mhm.
the lack of maintenance, the lack of attention for basically 45 years.
yeah, and
And in our new group, the new management, the new staff, new board, and the county and the state for that matter, with the monies that they put forward, that we're doing the best we can to take a situation that was unfortunate and do the best we can to both respect the history of it, but also put it in proper context. That's modern.
and this particularly comes from someone who works with the federal sphere, and so I will see projects
I'm
that
very aware of it after what
will
I've been.
condemn a building, and
Yeah.
then you watch them spend, millions on a project, and you're like, there was probably a little money there that we could have done something in the past, but we didn't.
Right.
And it's more of a just, I want to be aware that, since it was recognized, it is something that the guidelines in general encourage the board to not go with. And we've done this in other HODs. We've approved the demolition of a building that's a contributing structure. It's happened. It requires that thoughtful analysis.
Mr. Burns, and then Mr. Kalinsky, and then Ms. Hammond.
Okay, I agree with my colleagues, but then I disagree. So, Mr. Daniel, I think you were on the right track in suggesting that they need to do more homework in their defense of the demolition. And whether or not we can sit here and think that these are really contributing or not contributing, the fact of the matter is, in the historic overlay district designation, these are contributing buildings. I'm referring to both the south garage and the north garage. So we have to start from that they have been determined to be contributing. In the south garage, your programmatic needs coincided with the physical characteristics of that building, and that went through, no problem. But now you have a programmatic need that you'd like to meet that means that the current north garage doesn't meet that need as easily as the south garage met for your children's library and the accessible bathrooms. So you need to come up with, I think, a better argument as to why we have two contributing buildings and one needs to go and one needs to stay. So they need to better articulate a rational basis for that. And I agree with Mr. Daniel. Don't say it's neglected. Don't say it's ugly. Don't say it's an eyesore. Those aren't words I think would be helpful in this argument. You need to make a good, logical explanation of integrating the purpose that you just described to us with your mission and how you want to use the overall site to meet that mission goal, and that this building, if modified to this new design, would better meet that. Okay, that all being said, that's fine. I do agree with reusing the current brick if it's practicable, certainly on the street facade that is facing the south garage. That would make a lot of sense. The one thing that bothers me about the greenhouse structure itself is that the gable looks to me to be a look at me. It's like what I call dunce cap roofs on all the McMansions we see. That's very steeply pitched. And I'm wondering, how does that pitch of roof relate to the garages to the east that you're going to be refurbishing into the bride's dressing room and all that sort of stuff, and to the gable on the main house? I don't want a bigger, more prominent profile on the greenhouse roof in relation to the truly historic parts a little bit further towards the river. So I don't, if you can address that when you come back to us again, I think that would be very helpful.
So are you saying, A, and I think I've heard this more than once, right, tone it down a bit?
I'm not saying tone it down, I just establish why you have that particular pitch. To me, it strikes me as steeper than a greenhouse roof would tend to be. If
I think what that has to do with, and I'm not sure of this, but I think that has to do with the narrowness of the narrowness of the depth, I should say, of the building and the ratio.
right, and the need to get enough
Correct.
air movement so you can ventilate it properly.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand all that,
But
but
that's why I'm making the comment about toning down. Don't exaggerate it by, again, as others were saying, the different ornaments on the top and so on and so forth, that if you toned it down a little bit and didn't try and make it so ornate, that perhaps that would help with your concern. And I'm not saying we can't get the pitch down some.
yeah, I'm not talking about the little teeth that stick up on the very
Right.
top. I'm talking about the
No,
basic
no, I understand that,
proportions of the roof.
but I think that those things that stick out of the roof kind of make it even more that sticks out. That's all I'm saying. I'm trying to what's the means to get to the end?
Yeah, yeah.
Would it be helpful to know the pitches, like how it correlates to
Yeah,
those others?
that's what I'm asking, you know.
Okay.
You're proposing a different roof form than is currently there. And all I'm asking is,
I think
in
we
your
can work with that.
demonstration the next time around, show us how does this roof form relate to, and the key word here is be differential to
Correct.
the historic buildings that it needs to respect.
Meaning don't overpower the buildings that are already there in a fashion.
Yeah,
But
because
what you're really saying
this
is,
is what you first see.
Yeah.
You come up to the children's library, right? And this is your entree from the parking area.
yes, right.
And so this is an important gateway. So it's an important statement for you. And we are a horticultural society. And this is what we do. You know, you're getting that right up front. Okay. But then you're also a very historic site. And you want people to understand that it is both. And you guys are trying to make that work.
Understood.
Have you been to,
Who's clenching this?
oh, sorry.
Oh,
Please go.
Sorry. Have you been to Meadowlark Botanical Gardens in Vienna?
Yeah.
They have the greenhouse there, and I was looking at images, and the frame is like a little bit rounded, kind of the color is a little bit more muted. It does read, I think, as more modern than what you're showing. I think it still has the cresting at the roof, which I could do without, but that seemed like a nice example of something that read more modern. The other thing that I'm wrestling with is, I think I'm even contradicting myself. Like, if you're gonna make the argument, like, when you have a historic district, there's like A buildings, there's B buildings, there's C buildings, there's D buildings, right? And it's like a hierarchy. And like, when you have a repurposing of a site and you want a site to stay alive, like, you do sometimes need to cull the lowest hanging fruit. So like, just because something's contributing to me doesn't mean like it can't be demolished, because it might be like the F fruit that is the lowest hanging, and it's like needs to be sacrificed to like move the site forward, especially like a big complex site like this. So, but if we're saying it's to be demolished, then are we constraining the project by keeping the footprint? Could it be a better project if we just started blank and said it doesn't have to be the same footprint as the garage, because we're saying the garage is gone? Or like, could it
Can I
be?
address that in a practical matter?
Sure, yeah.
We have to deal with special exception.
I was gonna say on a zoning level.
Oh, you need to keep that
Yes.
footprint.
Yeah.
Okay, that explains it. Okay, you
Yeah.
explained it. I understand.
We have to
Okay,
keep it
okay,
in a
enough said. Okay.
Well, GFA.
Yeah,
Maybe-
I understand.
Maybe the footprint doesn't necessarily have to stay the same, but certainly we can't like.
Okay, okay, okay. That's what I was like. Are we somehow limiting the successfulness of the new greenhouse by being married to the garage? But that makes a very good, sound argument. And then the other thing is, I was looking at pictures of the garage and like it has those 50s like circle windows from boats. What are they called? Nautical
Portholes.
portholes. Yeah, my 87 Thunderbird had porthole windows in the back and no seatbelts. I wonder if like you could incorporate that somehow into the design. Like, 'cause that is like a visual nod to those garages. Probably the only thing that's visually interesting besides the setback. I mean, the steepness of the roof. Anyway, that's just my idea.
We would consider that, just so you know, we also have the limitations of custom versus
Oh, okay.
working.
Off the
I mean, you know, think about this. We're building 2 handicap bathrooms. It's $600,000 for 2, and we are doing the best we can
Yeah.
with the money we have to appreciate the historical significance, et cetera, while also making sure that we don't have or don't create or encourage any more dilapidated buildings. Sorry to use the phrase, but so, you know, there's this balance between the two of how do we do the right thing while still doing it within, you know, logical, reasonable.
Well, maybe simplifying the design will lower the budget.
But, well, and I want to just say that, I mean, I think we're hearing everything you're saying and we're going to do our best. I'm just laying it out there that we're balancing a lot of different things. And the whole special exception thing is one of them. We actually wanted to do the greenhouse with, in a different spot behind that building, blah, blah, blah. But all of a sudden it turned into, oh no, you'll need to do a special exception. You'll need to go through the public process, blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, with all due respect to how the county works, the public service is to get some of this stuff done so we can move forward, you know.
Well, I mean, I almost think you should have led with that because that makes total sense. And I think makes even more strong argument for like why maybe the garage needs to go.
Do we know if under the special exception demolition is permitted? Do we have that answer yet?
We do not see that as a problem, but to be quite frank, our approach here was once we went to the county, they started talking about the ARB again. And my feeling was, as Kathy knows, let's go to ARB first before we start messing with, you know, the rest of the process and make sure we all agree, because we think that if we are able to work it out with ARB, that the county then is going to say, I don't know if less easy or more easy on it is the right term, but it's going to put behind this whole question about what we're doing on this historic property. And so demolition should not be an issue if you're staying within the same footprint.
So it will require some level of approval. We're trying to stay within the administrative approval realm versus a special exception amendment, which does require public hearing and it's just more cost, you know, time, money. Whereas if we're able to stay within the parameters of a minor modification is.
And even staying within the parameters of modern modifications and everything else that we went through, we still spent a significant amount of our budget on this money that we had gotten from the state for just the process.
Mhm.
You know, well over $100,000 in that alone. So anyway,
Mr. Kalinsky and then Ms.
Yeah, just trying to find a justification for removing a contributing building. My mind went to the fact that porthole window was, you know, the one
Oh, the
unique
tracks.
thing about it.
Oh, okay.
But we already are preserving that. That porthole hasn't changed on the south building, has it? So, you know, my justification as I was saying, like, well, all right, how did, you know, calling it, everything Mr. Daniels said, I kind of felt inside. It's, you know, that you were just knocking this building because you want to get rid of it. I understand that. But we've already preserved, we have an example of what we're looking to replace with this. So, you know, I felt the comfort level there. That all that's there, and therefore no need to really preserve any
Yeah.
brick or portal features.
Okay, Ms. May.
Thank you. I guess I'll get back to something he was just mentioning. My first comment related to, why I can also support the idea of, constructing something in this place is this is one of the sites that does retain some archaeological potential. And so obviously, constructing in a previously disturbed area makes a strong case for limited potential to encounter something while you're doing it, whatever leveling you may be able to keep foundation, which would be great. But yes, to minimize site disturbance and minimize the risk of discovering or damaging an intact archaeological site. So that is, one benefit, I guess, of reusing an area. I'm obviously not advocating for for demolishing a building for that reason, but that is something that probably, is a cost factor too, is that if you were to construct somewhere else on this property, you would probably be involved in grading that and the square footage threshold that might require that you do at least talk to the archaeology collections branch. I might still advise that you do that here too, just to double check, because again, there's going to be staging areas and, you may go scooch outside of the existing footprint a little bit. And I just want to be sure that you're covered, in the event that you do encounter something.
We would be more than happy to do a phase one, 10 feet, 15 feet out from the foundation. That would not be an issue for us. And we actually did a phase one for the whole trail system
Yes.
going down there, which
And I don't
was
know
pretty
that-
significant.
Exactly. Yes, it's a
And-
cost for sure.
But
But I
quite
don't know.
frankly, that's one of the ones as a developer I couldn't argue with. I don't know that why they did, quite frankly, why they didn't just come out and say, do a phase one. They had to go through a whole committee thing and everything else. And it was like, well, it's one of the original Mount Vernon farms. I mean, I would say phase one is, not an unreasonable ask.
Okay, well, if
And
it
we didn't
comes-
run into anything, by the way.
Right, I did see the results of that. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you doing the work. I am not gonna advise phase one right away, but I would advise at least talking to the collections, exactly, and letting them know. If I can remember my other train of thought, the other question I had is probably more procedural one, but it strikes me that, we've just gone through accepting brand new design guidelines for a lot of other HODs. This one was from 2021. How have we contemplated updating design guidelines when there are changes to HODs and contributing resources that are shown in there? Is that something we need to talk about? Brief addenda to once they do complete the construction on the carriage house, and how would we go about that? But that's maybe a question for the board or staff rather than you all. I just want it to be something that we think about as a board, is that we need to probably update the design guidelines as changes.
I think that Daniel was talking about like doing staff reports, and in that staff report, doing like a timeline of past actions. And I feel like that would be the place to know that the building had been, I don't know, I feel like that would be a way to administratively note it amongst the board members if there'd been a change. So.
Mary Catherine's working on a contract with Tracery as we speak. Next round.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in and say that that's probably something that Mary Catherine and myself and Chris can work through and figure out how we want to address that.
Yeah, any of the things with the guidelines is any change is gonna have to be approved by this board.
Sure.
It's not like a living document.
Right.
So it's something I think staff reports, like you suggested, staff reports would probably mention past changes.
Right. Here's the history.
Particularly if it relates to a contributing resource being so greatly altered that staff feels it should no longer be considered contributing. That would be a place where you document that.
Okay, great.
And we certainly don't want to get in the way of that process. So we'll go ahead and finish ours and you can go for it.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Jim?
Just thinking kind of, I guess, into Mr. Burns's kind of question about the pitch of this greenhouse, the concept you're looking for here, plus the other roofs associated with the other structures. I don't know a lot about greenhouse design. And so the more you can, when you come back, inform us on the options, what it's going to achieve, obviously, what you all need to achieve in a greenhouse. As someone whose plant survival rate is pretty low in my own home, I want something that works, obviously, but I think there's flexibility here too for, what you could use here. And so not knowing what the design options are for greenhouses, but also knowing you want something that's, in the similar mode of the rest of the structures. Feel free to have some creativity there, I think. I think that's also what Ms. Hammock was kind of getting at, This is a new structure. It's fun to have some
I
fun
think we
with
can
that
come
too.
back with something that works and appreciates what everybody here said at the table, that we can come back. Because I, for one, totally get it about it. And I know, what do you call it, fenestration or whatever, with all those little things coming up. That's not fenestration, is it? Anyway, I'm no architect, but the bottom line is that I think we can appreciate that. I think there's just this fine balance that needs to be achieved. And what we've seen here is a little bit overboard. And that's what I'm hearing, Mr. Burns, is that it's a little bit overboard and that we need to tone it down a little bit. But more.
Mr. Daniel said that. I was concerned about the.
No. I was just going to get to that. As far as the pitch is concerned, I think you make an excellent point with the pitch, because we don't want to outcompete the South Building as far as the structure is concerned. Is that where you're coming from?
And the historic building further up the hill.
Correct. Yeah. We don't want to make some major statement beyond what's kind of already the balance, if you will, between the buildings. Is that correct? Okay. So the next step is to come back with a more defined idea based on what you all.
Yeah, I think we've given you a lot of feedback to consider. Obviously, yes, come back to us when you're ready, and you don't have any involvement in the zoning process. That's your own deal. But obviously that'll have to go hand in hand with what we do here. So
You can do more workshops. You can come back with full application. I mean, it runs the gambit here with packages. We come back. And Ms. Kelly
Well, it'll be very
was a
important.
veteran of many
It'll
workshops.
be very important for us with staff, the rest of the administrative procedures, that, we have your blessing on what we're going to do.
I have a quick question, because this discussion of the justification, right? And a lot of this, Ms. Orr, you led with why it was even identified as a contributing resource. And I did look at the design guidelines. There didn't seem to be too much by way of why it was identified.
So look at the National Register. It's on the National Register.
Well, that's where I'm curious, where can we get that?
It's not on that.
Well, is it on the Virginia Department of Historic Resources?
No, I don't think so. So where would?
This,
That's why I couldn't find it.
the political reality was this was a rush job.
Yeah.
To protect it.
Okay,
Agreed.
this is what you should do. You should do aerials. You should try to, when you come to us with a map,
Sure.
date all the buildings and color code them. These buildings are from this date. Make the argument that these buildings are outliers of the core significant dates of the, and then maybe bring some photographs visually.
Yeah.
They don't look like the rest of the, so talk to us like we're a little dumb, like we don't know the site really well, and just illustrate, because it is important that the board document its thought process. So it's visually not cohesive. It's the outlier date, no other buildings date from this time. The function of a garage is a generic function, although it is support to the property. It's not specific to the use of the historic use of the property. And that can help make your argument for why it can be demolished.
And Mr. Burns gave you a lot of good talking points with the programmatic need you have compared to the building that you have and how you, because I can't see you saying, oh, we could turn this into a greenhouse.
I don't want to make decisions based on program because.
Well, but you want to demolish a historic building that's contributing. I mean, that's the
Yes.
flat statement you're asking me to vote on. It's historic, demolish it, I guess. That's not, I don't tier buildings. It's historic. So I don't like that concept because then it means they're all ranked and we don't work in a ranking system with historic buildings. That bothers me.
In any historic district, there's, okay.
There's not much ranking in the HODs. It's
I know, but
either
if we-
contributing or
but-
non-contributing. You don't say this is more contributing, that's less contributing.
I'm not saying that we should rank our historic district. I'm saying in practice for adaptive reuse, when you make decisions, you have to make decision about which will have the greater impact on the historic district. And so a building like this would have less of an impact than demolishing the historic home.
I understand kind of the balance. If you're
Yeah,
looking at it.
I think program, but like you said, you were like physically adverse to the statement about it being neglected. I get physically upset when someone says, well, I need a bedroom and I need my kitchen to have a counter here. And that's my program. And because my counter is this tall, I need to demolish this window. So I think that maybe program wasn't the right, maybe a better word is like the use of the adaptation of the property and how the greenhouse supports that.
Yeah, I think what I would say to sum it up is give us a little bit of history of the site. Give us some information about how this structure fits into the rest of the site, and then give us some information about how you want to use it and how that's going to fit into the rest of the site. I think that's what, makes the most sense to me, is kind of how to present it, to give us, again, we assume, I'm not saying we know nothing about this. Most of us have been out there and we know, but assume we know very little and give us all that background. And I think there's going to be diverse opinions because there's however many of us there are. But I think if you give us all that information, that puts us in the best position to make an informed decision, and we would take it from there.
And I think we like the idea of exactly what Ms. Hammock, is that?
Yeah, it's Hammond.
Yeah, said that to really be able to define all the different parts that are out there and see how contextually this fits in. But with all respect to Mr. Daniel's comments, not rating it, just figuring out how to make this property work while at the same time respecting history as much as possible.
All right.
Add one more thing.
Yes.
Fairfax County has historic aerial photographs going back to 1937. Is it
Maybe
that?
go back to the 30. Yeah, I've used that.
You've used that. I use that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That you can establish timeline.
yeah,
of where
we can do all that.
And please ask the county, could they get more from the 1940s and 50s? Because they kind of make huge jumps. And then all of a sudden,
Yeah, I think it goes, if I remember correctly, I think it's
But
like 1936, and then the next one jumps to like 1950. So you're right.
yeah,
And then as you get.
because that was a period of explosive growth in the county. If you want to map the history of Fairfax County, you need those maps from the 1940s and early 50s, especially. That's all that post-war development.
And if I may, from staff's perspective, I just would like to really encourage the applicant to reach out to zoning
Oh, yeah, we know, we,
for
so
returning.
we've already reached out to them even before we came.
I think you need to reach out to them again with this new idea.
Correct. Yeah, we have every intention of,
I think there needs to be some clarity before the ARB can actually make a decision.
yeah, that's our
This
next
new
step.
idea being,
Well, we've already reached out about the concept of the garage and specifically the north garage. So there are, the same reviewers that we went through the initial zoning with the, ADA improvements. So we brought this up again. Hey, we're looking to do this. Can this get approved administratively? And one of their recommendations was we would have to come back to the ARB again. So make sure you go to the ARB also. And so we've been working with both. I have every intention of reaching out to staff.
Okay. I think it would be helpful to know if it requires, what zoning approvals it requires when it comes
absolutely.
back to the
Yeah.
ARB.
Because that, again, the actual approval, the administrative, whether it is an SCA or whether it is a minor modification, approval would have some sort of condition that requires ARB. So,
You would
Yes.
require a recommendation from us on that front too, then.
Yeah.
Which you probably want to happen at the same meeting if we were going to do that,
right.
instead of having to come back again and present for a whole nother recommendation.
All right. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay. That was our only workshop item. We do not have any presentations. So that brings us into board and staff items. We did get January's minutes. Did anyone have any changes to January's minutes. If they don't, I'll also note the treasurer's report, our balance is $33,890.56 as of January 23rd, 2026. And if no one has changes to the minutes, I would certainly entertain a motion to approve those minutes and to pay the clerk, Mr. Kalinsky.
All right, I move that the ARB approve the January 8th, 2026 meeting minutes of the paid clerk, Ryan Johnson.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Burns, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that motion carries. That brings us into discussions, updates, reports. You saw the letter from Chairman McKay, and I know everyone's aware of the letter that History Commission sent. I've talked to Mary Catherine and Chris about this. Obviously, Chairman McKay's letter certainly addresses what is being done with the records and the historic material that was within the structure. It does not deal with the structure itself. I am happy to pen a letter to Chairman McKay expressing our concern about not having much of a plan for the structure itself, but I did not think that I should do that without having approval from the board, if that is the wish of the board for me to do something like that. I open that up for discussion.
I think we should avoid like what happened at Dunwood Mooring. Try to get out in front of it. Sounds like a good idea. Thank you for offering to do that.
Do you need a motion or just consensus?
No, I just wanted to make sure there was no objection or any concerns. Or
Can't wait to read it.
it's
Go
going to
for
be
it.
great. I am going to be out of town tomorrow, but then when I get back early next week, I'll be happy to tackle that.
It's a long week.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. All right, so that brings us into, Mary Catherine, you didn't have anything else on that, right?
The only other thing that's not listed here that should be is I believe I forwarded everyone the Dulles Airport environmental assessment comment period that's due like this week or something. It's a very short window. My understanding from Denise is that the ARB has not wanted to comment officially on the airport, but I wanted to just raise that again to see if you all had any desire to provide comment.
Are the changes that are being proposed in the Fairfax County portion of the airport? Because it's partially in Loudoun
It is
County.
partially.
Is it-
Fairfax
Is
County.
this a section 106 review?
It was
Yeah.
so dense.
Okay, well, being it's Magma, I can't really say much on that.
We would have to recuse ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah. But
But
It's not something that's in an overlay district, so it's not something that's gonna come from the ARB, and I think in the past, that's why the ARB has chosen not to. But perhaps I was not here, that's just what I've gathered.
Okay, we have gotten involved in section 106 stuff in the past.
Okay,
And we got involved and we, I think, made a material difference in what's it, the soapstone connector? And having that, forcing them into 4F and compliance for the demolition of some of the buildings in the what is that?
Association Drive.
Association Drive in Reston.
What is there?
And then we got involved because we were trying to save the Fairfax County Court Records Building near the George Mason University campus. So I got involved in that. And that prompted a dictate from the county clerk's office, I think. He's, butt out, basically. But, so, Denise is probably saying, yeah, we got slapped down in the past. It best not go there. But I think if it's something that falls within our county boundary jurisdiction, and I can't remember, it may be that the terminal building itself is in Loudoun County.
but the terminal building, I believe, is.
I'm pretty sure it's in Loudoun
Loudoun.
County.
It's the ancillary like fuel and all that.
So,
But perhaps.
while staying out of an individual, my time on the board, the board has participated as a consulting party in consultations in the past.
Yes.
And it has provided its feedback and identified itself as a consulting party. It's basically Denise or Laura or the administrator has informed us of when there's an undertaking that we might, and then the board has made a decision. Typically, I don't think we've had one since Ms. Mangan's been here, but I've been removed myself from the room because it could interface with our our professional careers, but that's kind of been like, she's occasionally put things on here saying, hey, here are some reviews that we've been notified of. But as John pointed out, there's that interesting dynamic between the county providing comments or the ARB providing comments, and it's
And there was another one, was the SM1 reactor at Port Belvoir. We got involved as a consulting party.
I definitely have to root myself with that one.
Yeah.
I was on the other side of that one.
Yeah, but if the proposed area of impact is in Loudoun County and it's beyond our jurisdiction, I think we would have no standing to say we want to be a consulting party. I mean, is that a reasonable
I
statement?
tend to agree.
Yeah.
I'll look into it further.
Thank you. All right, so new business, records manager. I just wanted to have a conversation that in a scenario where we were to get contacted about maintaining records, make sure that you reply to that correspondence about what records you have and that you're maintaining it. I would remind everybody, it's my understanding that any materials that we get from county staff, if it be an agenda or items in the Ignite file or anything, that's not something that we need to worry about maintaining. That's maintained by staff. However, if you have an agenda and you take notes on it, or you write on it, or you type up any notes as you review the applications at home, or write up any notes on the applications at home, those are all documents you would have to preserve in case of a potential FOIA. I don't really write a lot or at all during a meeting because I'm running the meeting. So I'm a little different, but if you make the decision to do that, just make sure that you are complying and maintaining records. Mr. Dan.
This is just an interesting question, just because as a vice chair, I've fallen into this. I frequently end up writing a revised motion when it gets convoluted and we need a motion and we need to draft something. Would it be prudent to then turn that over to staff at the end of the meeting so you just have it for the record?
You could go, yes, yes.
Okay, it's not a common occurrence, but sometimes we get to something that's a little more complicated and I didn't have to write, okay, Mr. Kalinsky said this, Mr. Burns said that, Ms. Mangum also mentioned this thing and we need to merge them and I've had to write something down. That's normally I maybe doodle.
I'm not as stressed about that, but at the same time, I would say yes, because sometimes I would say the final motion ends up being in the minutes, so that doesn't stress me as much. But if there are multiple iterations of that motion and there were maybe prior motions, prior language that we didn't use, I would say that is something we should.
Because I'd rather not retain a paper copy.
Yes, even though it's recorded. Because maybe even the language that you or I or somebody else jots down, we may not even tell somebody else about it. And we had to have it written down and it might not ever become part of the motion, but it is something that we have created and it is a record we should maintain.
Well, it was on that exact subject. So if the notes that you took are the words that you speak at the recorded meeting, do you still need a written record?
Anything you write or draw. Is the record. I think that
Oh, no.
I'm not an attorney, but.
I would say.
I have done my doodle skills.
Yeah, I am an attorney. Wow, I am an attorney. Who knew?
Where are the details on the record management requirement in our packet we got when we became PRB? So,
well, yeah, right.
Information so I can go review it from
That's right.
Okay.
I understand. I just want to make sure that we are complying with our FOIA obligations in the event there was some review of our records and we need to make sure that we have everything that we have. Ms. Burns.
What's the difference between FOIA and discovery?
A lot.
Well,
A lot. So a FOIA is a federal law, and Virginia has its own state FOIA law about maintaining records. It normally applies to public and governmental bodies. Discovery in any type of litigation is so much more Number one, it applies to private entities. It would include taking depositions. It includes documents. It includes what you say orally, in addition to anything that is documented, which is, so it's more. But in this case, I think we're just really trying to make sure that we are maintaining any records that we have. I will say, I do think the county attorney's office is complimentary of those of us who have made separate ARB email addresses. I think that's a prudent thing to do. And it just makes it a little bit easier to have everything in one place. It's not mandatory at all, but it does make things a little easier. And so, I would say, to the extent that you're taking notes of any kind, those are something that we need to maintain. And it's fine if you maintain it yourself. You do not necessarily need to give it to staff. You can maintain your notes. They just have to be accessible in the event that there is a records request at some point. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Staff reports. I know Mary Catherine has some thoughts on this. I want to introduce it if that's okay, and then turn it over to Mary Catherine. We talked about this in the chairman and vice chairman and staff meeting that we had, and I think we're getting closer to rolling these out. I think we need to make some decisions, and so I think there's going to need to be a little bit of an on-ramp to rolling them out, because not only do I think we need to understand what we need and what timelines we want, but we have to communicate those timelines to the public and applicants in sufficient time for them to be able to adjust to that. And so I think what we're thinking is that a natural timeline for rolling them out might be September, because we have a break in August, and that gives some lead time both for staff and for applicants to adjust to a new schedule for submitting materials. The other question, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mary Catherine, I'm just going to introduce it, is there's been, if we get staff reports, how much of a lead time do the members need in getting them? Do we need them 2 weeks before a meeting? Do we need them 1 week before a meeting? And then we also want to, I think, talk about the timelines for an application for action and an application for workshop by applicants. And Mary Catherine, if I missed anything, let me know.
Do workshops get staff reports? No, okay.
No, but we're just talking about the timeline for submittal based on changing timelines for applications for action.
So just a bit of background, what staff is envisioning is moving all the submission deadlines back so that applicants submit their application and staff has about a week to work with the applicant to get more complete documentation, to hash out zoning issues that arise, that sort of thing. And then we would write the staff report we would then have revised, in some cases, revised submissions from applicants that might include more details, clarifications and so forth. And then we would have a staff report to accompany that. So that's the reason for pushing back the submission deadline. Right now, we're envisioning pushing back the submission deadline, so there'd be 3 weeks between when you submit and when you go to a meeting, to a hearing. Or
In action.
Denise and I are talking about a 2-week lead time for workshops, because there will not be a staff report. Or it could be 3 weeks. It doesn't really impact the applicant so much, I don't think.
I think you should keep the filing deadline the same. Both of them.
That certainly streamlines the process for staff and creates a more clear communication to the public, because there's one deadline to remember.
Having dealt with the public, I think there's going to be misunderstanding about, well, I thought I was a workshop, and even if you just sit on the workshop ones and you don't need to do anything with them and they're all good, I think that would be good.
That also removes the opportunity for, I missed the deadline to file. Well, I'll just do a workshop instead if they have another week. So
Yeah,
if you just have the same deadline, It's either put up or shut up, I bet.
And also, we need to set our agenda and decide if we need 2 meetings.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's, you can say like, we need to know if we need to publicize the second meeting. We need to know how many workshop items we have.
Yeah, that,
Agreed?
It seems like you occasionally have some back and forth now where an incomplete submission and then there's a scramble to try to get updated information. So hopefully that gives you better lead time in order to get those things figured out. So
I would say there was, for example, tonight's workshop, I think there's a little more behind the scenes going on. Because I don't think, yeah, and I don't think we have, I'm not sure they've talked to zoning the way they think they've talked to zoning about this project. And so I was glad that at the end, we got to a place that they understand that they need to come to us for a recommendation on the zoning as well as approval for what they're going to do, because I think it's just going to make things easier if that's all together.
Well, aren't we also putting out checklists as we do the new reports?
There will be submission checklists.
Yeah.
As far as completeness.
Yeah, so that's new, right?
Yes, that will
So
be
that-
part of it.
That might help get things more complete. And I also think it helps pushing back when someone is saying, oh, no, well, I'll just get that to you by the deadline. You can just be like, checklist is not done. You need to go next month.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an adjustment for folks. I do, and that's why I think I want to make sure that there's adequate time for that. And so I think, but again, both for staff and for applicants. And so that's why I think that September might make the most sense. But yeah, Mr.
Could
King.
we have like an information session, like for the nice woman that, everyone's nice, excuse me for saying that. The woman that files a lot for Holland Hills.
Ms. Kelly?
Maybe you could have like an information session, even if it's over Zoom, and talk about
Jason
fireside
chat. Hey.
how it's gonna work, so that the people that
Right.
file all the time, like her, that might be helpful.
That will happen. So part of the reason we can't roll out staff reports next month, for example, is we are going to notify every property owner,
Okay.
resident, HOA, COA, industry, through Gov Delivery, snail mail,
Okay.
USPS,
So.
website, board of supervisors, and all the venues we can.
September sounds good then.
So we really want to get that word out there so people aren't blindsided, and especially the industry, like architects and engineers that regularly submit.
Yeah.
The other question staff needs in order to sort the schedule out is right now we put on Ignite, I put on Ignite, the submissions the day after the deadline, the submission deadline. You're getting that first, because there hasn't been much back and forth between staff and the applicants in terms of refining the submissions. But I really want that to happen so you guys have more information at the meeting. So the question is, do you still want to see that first draft of submissions the day after, or is anyone looking at that?
I tend to think if we get it like a week ahead of
Yeah,
time.
I think the agenda might be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think having the agenda, knowing, how much is coming, sure. But I think the actual, I think what's going to be used, I'm thinking of myself, it's kind of like my professional career. When somebody gives me something, I want it to be as done as I can be when I look at it. So I don't have to look at it 3 or 4 times. I want to look at it one time. And so if I'm looking at it when they've done the back and forth with staff has a staff report, here's the application, it's either good to go or it's not, this is what we got. That's me, that's what
Yeah, I think a week is enough time for that.
Yep.
Well, and that's when Jason and I talked to Mary Catherine about that. We recognize that every board member might have their own approach, because we were like, well, this is how I do it. But we both came away with the same position of we wanted to do whatever was easiest for staff. So that the limited resources you're working with, you were able to produce these things that we've been teased about a couple different times. And just don't move to Hong Kong, because that's the last time we saw staff reports, our administrator then revealed they were moving to Hong Kong, I think, right? Hong Kong?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And so just don't do that, because we want to make sure it works for you, because you're the one that has to do the reports,
Yeah.
prepare it all. So
Would it be
Friday-
easier for
Friday
you to
afternoon
give them
before the
later
meeting?
to give them access?
I mean,
later?
yeah, no, seriously.
Close of business
I need
Friday.
the
Is that
weekend.
better time for you?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my world, in my past experience, that's what I would envision, would be the Friday before the meeting. So you'd have almost a full week, you'd have a weekend. And then you have that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to get back to me if there's anything urgent questions.
No, I think that gives staff the most time to work with the
But I think-
applicant, to work on the staff report, you know.
I think the agenda would be helpful if we want to do a drive-by on our own.
You would have the full list of
Yeah,
applications. The question that I have, that I think staff has not sorted out, this is something to discuss particularly with the chair, is the order. But you would know each address and case
Oh, okay.
number. That
Yeah,
Friday.
normally when Mary Catherine and I and Chris meet, we kind of go through everything, and I and Chris and Mary Catherine make an informed decision about the order of things. Normally, if someone's been before us before, we might put them up as an action item because we've already seen the project. Or if it's somebody who presents to us a lot and we know they're going to have a good informed presentation, we might put them at the front of the line because we
Set the
know that
tone.
we know what they're going to do. And then if we have someone who's maybe a homeowner who's never been before us before, that might be someone you put toward the end, you know, but, you know, or if we think something's gonna be especially controversial, maybe that might be.
Or if we know they're gonna bring their whole design team, that they're paying to be there for every hour they're there. So they won't necessarily, also, they're gonna go much longer than the time we've said. We don't want, Joe Q public to be sitting here going, wow, I've learned a lot about Laurel
I
Hill
don't care
today.
about the order. That's why you're the chair.
No, that's,
That's
that's,
a hard decision.
I
Don't
don't,
sell yourself
No.
short. You could be chair too.
yeah,
November?
please. Yeah, I'm not even officially appointed as a board member right now.
Nomination committee's taking notes.
Right?
But not on
Please do.
paper.
Please do. I'm supposedly getting reappointed at the next Board of Supervisors meeting, so. Yay.
Does that answer your
Yeah, that
concern
sounds
as
really
far as
exciting.
site visits and, okay.
Did we answer your question though?
Yeah, well, but before does anybody else, because I think we kind of put out there something, does anyone disagree with it or have another time?
It works.
Yeah.
Okay. So have we answered your question then timeline wise, that I think what we're saying is applicants get stuff in 3 weeks, both for an action item and a workshop item, and that staff get us everything the Friday close of business before 6 days before the meeting.
Correct. That's what I'm hearing. And that you are comfortable with the September rollout.
In the September, yeah.
Okay. And
Is that good? Is
September?
September good for staff?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Ms. Hamick's point about some kind of
August
little
meeting.
bit of information, even if it's just on the website, new submission process, even if it's just an infographic, you're gonna get in by this day. This is the new deadline. I might be helpful to have something you could quickly point people to, just, hey, note right here, this is the new timeline. I think it's already there, but just as much as we can avoid blindsiding any of our regulars too.
We want to avoid that.
And I'm not necessarily suggesting a certain approach, just thinking about how we could make people aware of it very rapidly.
I should just go to the Howland Hills Community Design Review Committee,
Actually,
since
you
that's where all our
probably
applications
should.
come from. So
Well, this is interesting.
that's only a halfway joke.
Because when we had the big blow up at the house on Martha's, we had talked about having taking the temperature of how the Howland Hills Historic Overlay District has been functioning from our perspective and from the community's perspective, having a meeting about that. Well, that house blew everything up and we kept putting it off because we didn't want to do it during a time of high emotions in the neighborhood. But now this is perhaps a time where we should revitalize that thing. This is before your time, but this was going to be people from the county, members of the ARB who choose to participate. I guess I would be one. Members of the community, members of the Howland Hills Design Review Committee, which is their own thing. Talking about, okay, we have this historic overlay district. It's been in effect for 2.5 years now. Yeah, okay, but it's time to take the temperature. Is the community thinking that this is, getting what they need, what's missing, what are you confused about, what works, what doesn't work, and things of that sort. I mean, the reality is, if you make all these changes, you really only have to tell the Holland Hills community, because you're getting very few from any place else.
That feels like almost a public outreach effort that would be done by a supervisor's office, not by us as a board.
Stork's office has been involved.
I know, I'm just saying, like, we don't normally, like, I know Holland Hills is our biggest and most complicated overlay district, but I don't know if we'd want to make a precedent of going and doing a temperature check with everybody on how their district is.
No, I had proposed this as a temperature check after the first 2 years, and then it got delayed, and then went boom, we had the big explosion, and now,
I have presented for realtors credit and for AI credit to groups about the permitting process. And so that could be how we phrase it, come meet with staff to discuss the new or not even new, just like our permitting process. And then by default at those discussions, you end up having people talk about their qualms about the process, but I don't know.
I just don't also want to open up a forum for a renewed discussion on whether or not the HOD is the ideal approach, because I feel like that's well hashed out through the
very
appropriate
prudent
process.
observation. Yes, I like the idea of coming to the community and saying, we want to explain the permitting process. We're making some adjustments.
Make it better.
To make it better. And everybody's going to go, oh.
Well, so what?
Anytime the government says we're going to make things better,
Here to help. Make permitting great again.
Okay.
All right.
Mary Catherine, anything else?
No.
Okay. Anybody with anything else? Yes, Mr. Dan.
No, I was going to move to adjourn.
Oh, please.
We'll give John a second.
I know.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay.
now that the
Oh,
recording is
hold on,
over.
wait.
No.
Wait till the recording's up. Okay. Yes.
Okay, I